Good evening. Welcome to the Salem Area Mass Transit District's December 17th meeting. We're beginning this virtual meeting a little after 6:30. And pursuant to Governor Brown's Executive Order 2016, issued in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting will be online only. And I will call this meeting to order. Ms. Kaliazi, could you please note the attendance for the record?
I have, okay.
Thank you. And given the virtual nature of the meeting, we will forego the Pledge of Allegiance, but we will move along to the safety moment. General Manager Pollock.
Yes, so thank you. So my safety message today is for those that have not heard, the governor did issue an extension to the emergency order for until March 3rd. The state of emergency for 60 days through March 3rd of 2021. So obviously that means things are not getting better. So continue to practice the 3 W's of wash your hands, watch your distance, and oh my goodness, I forgot the third one. Wash your hands, wash your dishes, and wear your mask. Yes, thank you. And that's my safety message.
Thank you, General Manager. In terms of changes to the agenda, I want to note a couple things. So under the consent calendar, member reappointments to the Citizen Advisory Committee and the committee's recommendation for their chair and vice chair have been included now in item E2B and E2C. And then lastly, action item number G2 will be pulled from the agenda this evening. And with that, Ms. Galiazzi, did we receive any public comment prior to the meeting?
Oops. No, we did not.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll move right along to the consent calendar. Are there any, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar. Director Krebs.
Thank you, Director Krebs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Richards. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Galiazzi, could you call a roll call?
Okay. Director Krebs?
Aye.
Director Bush?
Aye.
Director Richards?
Aye.
Director Carney?
Aye.
Director Nguyen?
Aye.
Director Hinosa? I'm sorry, Maria. Director Hinosa Pressy? Hinojos Pressy, yes.
Ms. Galiazzi?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am shut out, I think. Excuse me. Can you remind me where I left off?
Director Hinojos Pressy, I believe I'm next.
Oh, okay. And President Davidson.
Aye.
Okay.
And I think we still need Director Nguyen.
Director Nguyen, thank you. Sadie?
I was an aye vote.
Okay. I have somebody on the station here that I don't have a clue who it is.
So I believe that was a unanimous vote.
It was.
Okay, excellent. So with the consent agenda handled, we'll move right along to the action items. The first of which is an approval for a contract to work for the South Salem Transit Center. General Manager Pollock.
Yes, so I ask Director of Technology and Program Management, Steve Dickey, to present the staff report.
Good evening, President Davidson, members of the board. Tonight, we bring to you a proposal to approve a contract for site selection services for our South Salem Transit Center. The district has been planning for the development of South Salem Transit Center for many, many years, and it has been a long process. And due to a number of circumstances, some of lack of funding from time to time and other obstacles, it has started and stopped, and we are ready to move forward with this again. In fact, the last activity on this project was in 2018 when we had gotten through to the point where we had selected the South Salem Walmart, a portion of their property for the purchase, and it was met with significant resistance, and the decision was no longer pursue the location was based on a high likelihood of a very costly and drawn out legal battle through the eminent domain process. However, this pause has allowed the district to reevaluate our services and how we deliver those services to South Salem and other areas on the edges of the district service area. As a result, this will reshape the design and potential location of the transit center in South Salem as we look at how do we integrate other things to better serve our communities, such as microtransit, micromobility, better opportunities for coordination with connectivity to other modes and other types of services. In an effort to start this process with a new focus, the district issued a request for proposals, and that's in your packet under attachment A, for services to conduct that site selection study on September 4th, 2020, with a closing date of October 9th, 2020. 2 proposals were received for the project, one from WSP Global and the other from Parametrics Engineering, Planning, and Environmental Services, which we'll refer to as Parametrics. Both proposals were considered responsive. On November 16th, the Source Evaluation Committee, made up of internal staff members, conducted the first round of scoring the proposals. Upon completion of the scoring, subsequent discussion, it was determined by the SEC that there was a preference to interview the teams, and speak to them about some specific issues that each of us had in question regarding some of the proposal elements that were submitted in the written proposals. On November 16th, interviews were conducted online with each of these project teams separately, of course. And on November 23rd, the SEC met again and made the final decision to recommend the contract to be awarded to Parametrics. While both firms presented highly qualified teams, Parametrics scored higher based on the scoring criteria identified in the RFP document. Based on the proposal's timeline, the project is expected to take 78 weeks to complete. The financing for this project was approved in the 2020-21 adopted budget, and you could find it on page 109, line 7, under the Capital Projects Fund. And the project is funded with federal grants and with local match. And the activities of this contract are covered in the grant agreements. So staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with Parametrics Engineering, Planning, and Environmental Services for the development and completion of site selection study for the South Salem Transit Center, and approve a project budget of $375,000, which includes a contingency of approximately 15%. And I would be happy to entertain any questions at this time.
Are there any questions for Director Dickey? Okay, I've got a few. The project is expected to take 78 weeks. When is the starting point? Is it tonight?
We will issue a notice to proceed, I would believe, and I see Dan Knaus, our procurement and contracts manager, is with us, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but sometime within the next week to 2 weeks. With the holidays, it's a little bit of a trickier process to make sure we get everything through the signature process, but I know that we do have the contract ready to go.
Okay, great, thank you. Director Carney?
Thank you, President Davidson. And so after the 78 weeks, we will have a site selected, or we will have a couple of sites selected to make a choice between, and from there, we would look to have the capital project of the actual transit center being constructed sort of is the next phase?
President Davidson, Director Carney, the end product of this will be a study that will bring us down to preferably one, but it may be to as many as three, but preferably no more than two preferred sites. From those preferred sites, then a final decision would be made with staff recommendation by the board as to which direction to proceed. Working with making the actual purchase, we had an internal discussion and we feel more comfortable than working with a commercial real estate broker to help us navigate that piece of the process. Once we, though, have identified where we're looking at, then we can embark on the actual engineering and design of a facility, and with that and with the purchase of the property, and of course the environmental process that we have to go through with FTA, completing our, in this case, probably a documented categorical exclusion, which is a little bit less of a process. Potential project of this size has the potential to necessitate an environmental assessment, but we typically don't know that until we actually have the site identified and know if there are any particular issues that would raise us up to that next level. But the next major hurdle will be that what we call the NEPA process and the design and engineering, which will then give us the documents to go out to bid for construction. This though is to look at how we deliver service in that, and so there's an extensive amount of outreach and analysis in this study that will look at future business growth, residential development growth, travel patterns, the desire for integration between different types of modes, and quite a number of elements will go into this study to help us make the best decision. And of course, the operational aspects of connecting our fixed route buses is an essential piece of this as well.
That's a significant amount of coordination in terms of inputs that we are expecting to be at a point of sort of resolution or resolve, including the physical location of a transit center, the future shape of transit needs and transit service within our community, including microtransit and other options. So I think it's something, you know, we'll be watching closely, and I'm looking forward to it. But I will applaud the landing of this plane, because that seems like a lot to take on. So I guess let's do it.
Director Bush.
Okay. I'm with Director Carney there, and being part of the board that worked on the one before this and having to stop and change. This is exciting to see it on the road again, if you want to take the pun there. But I was just curious if our feasibility study with Albany has any relationship to how we're looking at the transit center in South Salem. You know, is that part of maybe the buses coming into that center, or are we looking at them coming all the way into downtown Salem? Or am I in the wrong ballpark?
President Davidson, Director Bush, the Albany study is taking into consideration the possibility of the South Salem Transit Center as a potential connecting point. With that will be one of the elements that will be taken into consideration for the location, but it will certainly not be the driving factor. There are so many other elements that rise to a much higher level of significance in our priorities of how we serve and provide connectivity within South Salem, as well as the potential of connectivity across from the South Lancaster region out near the Mill Creek Corporate Center over to the commercial and Liberty corridors. How do we connect those areas so that it is a reasonable commute for people who are trying to access jobs, or even continue on up Lancaster Drive to get to Chemeketa and such? So it's really about how does this accentuate our ability to provide world-class customer service by improving travel time and improving accessibility?
Thank you.
Director Carney, is your hand up?
It is. Maybe for the last time. I'm not going to promise anything. I just I wanted to just emphasize for everybody here and anybody listening. I know that we do, as a transit district, have significant levels of coordination with city planners and in some case county planners, because I know we have a pretty variegated urban growth boundary in the city of Salem. But the need for coordinated planning for something, a project of this scale with as many facets as there are, including built infrastructure, pedestrian access, cycling access, first last mile problems, and transit service delivery cannot be overemphasized. And so I'll be looking as we go forward with this project to how we are incorporating that input and those ideas and those different aspects of planning. But if there's anything you would want to offer now in response to that, I'm happy to hear it. Just want to sort of state for the record that something of this scale and importance for our community just has such a need to be integrated at a level that involves many pieces of local government.
President Davidson, Director Carney, one of the things that is really beneficial to us is our relationship that we do have with City of Salem staff and City of Salem planning staff and transportation staff. One of the key elements in any kind of a project of this nature is to make sure that you have an advisory committee of stakeholders. And City of Salem staff will definitely be invited as they have been reciprocal in those types of relationships as well, as they have invited us, and we do participate in their Our Salem project. The other piece of it is we do also hold monthly meetings now, which came out of the recommendation, as you well know, of the task force that public transit task force that City of Salem had put together, and those meetings are quite beneficial to us. We're finding it as something that happens regularly, and we have always a full agenda and we have no lack of things to talk about. And this is one of the regular items that is on our agenda, is the development of the South Salem Transit Center. So on there, we have people from urban development, we have people that are involved with traffic, the traffic engineer, planning, economic development. So we're looking at it from a variety of different perspectives. In addition to that, of course, we're also part of the SCATS Technical Advisory Committee and have a good relationship with the Marion County staff as well that are part of that. And since this project would be located in both the Marion County and City of Salem, those would be the primary staff for this project.
Thank you.
Other questions for Director Dickey? So with the two preferred sites hopefully being the outcome of this kind of report, are they also making recommendations around what the transit center itself would look like? I know in the past I've heard reference to either what I would consider like a full-blown transit center, or, and please forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, like a kiss and ride transit center, I think is the terminology. If I am off base, please let me know, and I will wallow in self-pity.
President Davidson, first I'll respond to the first part of the question, then I'll respond and let you wait for a minute to see if you're right. The first part of the question is, yes, we will, part of the requirements is that we have conceptual designs. So the difference between conceptual designs and the final engineered designs, our conceptual designs will show us, as well as most of the public, this is what you would get. This is what type of interaction of different modes can come in. This is the way traffic would flow. This is how many buses it can handle, how many cars it can handle, and so on. They typically will have artist renderings also of kind of what the visual architectural appeal would be, so that the community also knows what to expect from a transit center. It's not just, tilt up concrete buildings like you'd see in a warehouse. It's something that we try to make appealing and blend into the environment, and it's something that's a benefit to the community. And with that, the different elements, so when you get to the term kiss and ride is commonly referred to in the relationship of where you have transit centers that are not so much designed to have park and ride, where you would drive your car and get out of your car and leave your car at that location for the day while you take the bus on in. Kiss and ride or drop and ride is another term, is where you have a lot of times it could be a carpool, or it could be a household with more than one party using the same vehicle, where one would drive it to work. So they are doing a carpool to that point, but one has to continue further where the carpool driving that distance wouldn't be practical, so they will stop. And typically this is a lane that has an extended curb length that a car could pull up. Think of it as the departure gate at an airport, where you can pull up, let the people get out, grab their things, and on their way. And so that typically would be part of what we would look for in this design, especially as we're trying to incorporate a broader flexibility of how people travel from that last mile all the way to their end destination.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to hear that the term kiss and ride is in fact real. I think in the future they'll all use stop and ride. I like that term a little bit better.
Stop and ride.
I remember at one point there was maybe discussion of multiple stop and rides as opposed to one large or centralized transit center. Is that also something being considered?
President Davidson, in the design concepts, we have left it open to the consultant to evaluate the area that we're wanting to serve. And one of the things that you can look at is, if you're looking at having microtransit or circulating service that does not go downtown, sometimes you'll have areas where those different pieces of that will intersect. But a typical bus stop does not provide a convenient or adequate location for really a good connection. And so these are really, rather than being a drop and ride type of facility, they would be an area where you could have 2, maybe 3 buses arrive at a time. Sometimes they're called super stops as well. And you'll have a little bit larger waiting platform. You'll typically have maybe not a full-blown shelter, but a cover, an extended length cover with lighting that allows people to wait out of at least the direct overhead weather. Given some of the weather we get, it's hard to build a shelter that protects you all the time. But it is something that, keeping in mind also maintenance and those types of things, something to provide shelter, and also a bit of demarcation of saying, this is a welcoming place for you to come and wait for the bus. It can function also as people, if there's nearby parking where they could swing by safely and drop someone off. But more often it is, if you had 2 or 3 smaller circulating routes that are circulating through neighborhoods, and maybe with utilizing microtransit to do that, this would be the place where maybe one of your core routes pulls in there, and timed with when that route would arrive, your other circulating routes would make sure to have an opportunity to drop just before that bus would arrive to take people further on down along the route. And those would then work in conjunction with your main stop.
Right. That's very helpful picture that you just painted for me. Are there other questions for Director Dickey? If not, I have one final question, and it's actually more of a comment generally. So given the timeline that we're working under, and I think that's an appropriate timeline, this kind of thing needs to, we need to take time and be deliberate about it. But given that, and with a new federal administration coming in, and us presently still in an economic recession, and the last time we were in a recession with the new administration, there were recovery dollars. And so perhaps at a future meeting, I would be curious to see if there's a list of what we might call shovel-ready type projects or other things that maybe are on a shorter time frame that we could queue up if federal dollars are released and available to the district.
Absolutely.
But I see
Yes.
thank you. I see Director Bush's hand raised.
Oh, I'm already unmuted. Sorry. I was, as I was looking through it today, I noticed the a market analysis or the surveys, the variety of surveys that would be happening to see what how the community feels about the project. Could you speak to those just briefly?
President Davidson, Director Bush, these are going to be done, well, depending on the timing and what the current circumstances are. The communication team that is part of the overall project team is fully aware and has been operating within the pandemic or the COVID environment and has been quite effective in doing online and through telephone surveys and through online opportunities and operating online open houses to gather information. But there are going to be targeted efforts in this, and with each of these targeted efforts, there will be different approaches taken that they have found to be most effective. So in one case where they're targeting the business community, they may choose to do a focus group with that group and select and work with maybe the chamber and business groups that are in the South Salem area to identify key people that would be good as a focus group members to provide input. And focus groups are very specific and intentional in the questions that they ask and the information that they're seeking to gather. With the onboard surveys, those are things that, given our lower ridership, that is probably going to have to be something that is more automated, where there would be an opportunity to point someone to a website to where they could take the survey, unless it is somebody who doesn't have those capabilities. And those, you would have the limited available or limited quantities of the hard copy available for them to fill out and send in. But those would be our options there. But those are things that we have spelled out in each of the sections of the request for proposal document that really kind of articulates specifically the approach that we want to take with each of those groups. So it is something that also we understand that given our circumstances and how this is constantly changing, a great deal of flexibility and adaptability has also been expected. And those sentiments were expressed clearly during our interviews to both of the project teams.
Are there any other questions for Director Dickey? Okay, thank you very much, Director Dickey. Would someone like to make a motion?
I will. I move that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with, oops, I have the wrong contract up here. Don't let me resolve that. Somebody else should take over this motion because I don't want to move the wrong thing.
Director Kraft?
I will follow. I move that the board of directors authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with Parametrics Engineering, Planning, and Environmental Services for the development and completion of a site selection study for the South Salem Transit Center and approve a project budget of $375,000, which includes a contingency of approximately 15%.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Galeazzi, could you please call for a vote or call us for a vote?
Okay. Director Hinojosa Pressey?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, aye. Thank you. Director Krebs,
Aye.
Director Nguyen,
Aye.
Director Carney,
Aye.
Director Bush,
Aye.
Director Richards,
Aye.
President Davidson.
Aye.
Okay. It's unanimous.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next action item, I just wanted to recognize Ashley Carson Cottingham. She's on the call, and she was just recently appointed by our action to the Budget Committee. So welcome, Ashley. We look forward to serving with you actually awfully soon, like just around the corner. We'll be doing budgets.
Thank you. Thanks for the welcome. I'm happy to be here.
So next on our agenda is resolution number 2020-12, which is an amendment to our budget. Speaking of budgets, General Manager.
I will ask our Director of Finance, CFO Al McCoy, to present the report.
Thank you. Good evening, President Davidson and board members. This agenda item asks you to adopt the resolution to amend two prior resolutions that have been approved in order to increase the appropriations to our FY 2021 budget. The reason for this is that subsequent to the approval and adoption of our current year budget, we were notified of about 3 grants, and we want to amend these amounts into the budget so that we can be able to expend those dollars. The 3 grants were from 2 different sources, and the first one was the federal 5310 discretionary grants. There were 2 of those. One was a project for preventive maintenance of Cherriots regional bus stops. And the second one was the Mobility Management Regional Services Outreach Campaign. The total of those 2, including the local match, is $153,000. And then, if you remember, in October, Director Dickey had a presentation about the grant that we worked with ODOT on for rural veterans healthcare transportation. So we were awarded that. And this is a pass-through grant to the city of Woodburn. They will be using those funds for transportation for veterans to their medical appointments. And that is an amount of $45,000, and there is no match requirement there. So on the second page of the agenda item, you'll see the tables where the numbers indicate where we are proposing to change and add appropriations to funds and line items. The top table is the general fund. What we'll be doing there is taking $30,600 from our existing working capital, and we have to appropriate that into the budget so we can transfer it into the Transportation Programs Fund. These are the dollars that are local match for the 5310 discretionary grants. In the Transportation Programs Fund, you see that number 30,600 below on the transfer in from the general fund line. The actual federal assistance portion of the 5310 grants is $122,400. The pass-through funds from state, from ODOT, is $45,000 for a total of new resources of $198,000 in the Transportation Programs Fund to be added. The divisions that are affected by that are operations division will be increased by $153,000. The general manager board strategic initiatives division, as we currently have it grouped in the current year budget, will be increased by $45,000 for the pass-through amount, which is also a total of $198,000. So the financial impact of this is to really increase the transportation program fund by a total of 198,000, increase the appropriations of the general fund by 30,600 for the match that will be transferred in. And the staff recommends that the proposed resolution to amend the adopted FY 2021 budget be adopted, adding appropriations for federal and state grants and the district match. I'll be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for CFO McCoy? Director Krebs?
I don't have a question.
Oh, sorry. I thought you did. My apologies. So if there's no other questions, CFO McCoy, you're once again off the hook.
President Davidson, I do see a couple of directors who have their hands raised.
Oh, thank you. Director Carney.
That was in error. I apologize, CFO McCoy and President Davidson. You are indeed off the hook.
Thank you.
And Director Bush, I believe that's the same for you?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I probably forgot to lower it from last time, but thank you for all the work on this. It was exciting to talk about the wood burn part of that for their veterans in their area to the greeters group that I interact with. So it's nice to share good news with your constituents.
Yes, and I appreciate the nimbleness that you and your office are able to adjust to these kind of things. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
With that, would someone like to make a motion? Director Bush.
I have to find it on my thing again. I move that the board adopt resolution 2020-11 that amends resolutions 2020-02 and 2020-09 to authorize a budget amendment increasing appropriations in the general fund and transportation programs fund by the fund and division detailed in this memo.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Richards. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Galeazzi, could you run the roll call vote, please?
Sure. Who was the second? I saw Director Nguyen's hand go up, but you called out somebody else.
Oh, I believe Director Richards was the one that did the second.
Thank you. Okay. President Davidson?
Aye.
Okay. Director Richards?
Aye.
Director Bush?
Aye.
Director Nguyen?
Aye.
Director Krebs?
Aye.
Director Hinojosa Pressey?
Aye.
Director Carney?
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move along to the informational reports with the January 2021 service change briefing.
Yes, thank you. So I'll ask Chris French, our service planning manager, to present the report.
Thank you, President Davidson, members of the board. I'm here this evening to give you an update on service changes for January. We have usually in regular times, we have 3 service changes a year. We've had quite a few more than that this year with all that we've been dealing with, but we will be doing a change in January. For the local service, we were anticipating stepping up the service to go to 100%, but with the current conditions, we didn't feel that was a good decision to make at this point in time. And so we're going to continue with local weekday service at 95% and Saturdays at 100%. Regional service will continue to run at 100% as it has been for the past few months. The only significant change that's happening is in Polk County. We are transitioning the Polk County Flex to the Route 45, which is a deviated fixed route. We had hoped to be able to do this with great advertising and really push it out into the community because we're excited, but because of the limitation of ridership, we want to get the service launched, but we are not going to at this point really do all of the fanfare and pushing. We'll wait until things improve, but we're really excited to get that service out on the road to provide that more fixed route service in Polk County with Independence, Monmouth, and Dallas. And with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. French? Director Bush.
I feel like I'm playing a video game trying to get things to work. Sorry about that. It takes so long. I just wanted to say, we've had a lot of hard work in Polk County area to try and serve the community, and it's good to see this positive step forward in getting that accomplished. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. The approach of a deviated fixed route service is quite clever given the constraints we have in Polk County. And so kudos to you and the whole team for that. Are there other questions or comments? Mr. French, if you could remind me, the 95% level of service, I know we're not running the 22, is the other 5% frequency, or are there other routes affected?
President Davidson, the service that we're not providing right now is the service after 9 p.m. and the Route 22. So everything at all frequency levels have returned. We're just not offering the service after 9 p.m.
That's right. Thank you very much for that reminder. Director Bush.
Also, does that include the shop and ride that we're not doing, or is that specifically for the paratransit?
President Davidson and Director Bush, the shop and ride, we are currently not operating the shop piece of the shop and ride, but we are doing the dial-a-ride portion. With the limited constraint on the buses, we can't offer the shop piece to pick up large groups at the homes. And so we're running all of the shop and ride hours that we have that would usually operate on the shop portion of it, just as general dial-a-ride service, so people can call in and use those hours that are allotted to the shop and ride at this time.
Other questions or comments? Okay. I'm anxiously awaiting the May update. Thank you for all the work going into the January update. I think the May update, I'm hoping, will have a more exciting news. But thank you for all the hard work that you and your team have put into this.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks. With that being our only informational report, we'll move right along to the General Manager's report.
Yes, thank you. I just have a couple of items to report. So I'm imagining that everyone has heard the news, but earlier President-elect Biden has nominated his Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, which is exciting news. As a former mayor, understands the need for infrastructure. And earlier this year, actually in February, prior to the pandemic, APTA was a co-sponsor of an infrastructure summit, and he, along with President-elect Biden, spoke at that summit and heavily emphasized the need for infrastructure, all kinds of infrastructure, but they both talked about the need for transit as well. So we look forward to that confirmation process and getting him in place so that we can, because the next piece of that is then getting Senate confirmed the modal administrators, and the one important to us is the Federal Transit Administration. So we'll be watching to see who that appointee is. I can tell you that I'm working with the federal portion of CFM as well as the APTA legislative group, working on trying to understand the details of any COVID emergency relief bill. You've probably heard there's, at this point, $15 billion set aside for transit. I think it's $13.2 billion of that is in the formula process, but there's some caveats to that. We're hearing that you'd be capped at 75% of your 2018 expenses. That includes also the first round of CARES Act money that we did receive. But it's very messy right now, so we're trying to really determine what does that really mean and how is that going to be allocated, because there are some large agencies, i.e. New York, Chicago, that could eat up all of that before we get our delta between what we've already received and 75%. So I know CFM and APTA are working with groups on that now. And I should have more to report on Monday, this coming Monday. The APTA Legislative Steering Committee, which I'm a member of, has a conference call to get the latest updates. We did meet earlier this week on a call, and that was one of the questions just about everyone had is, give us the details on that breakdown of the 75% limit. The last time we had met, it was going to be 100% of the FY 2018 operating expenses. And so I asked the question, well, what caused the change? And they really didn't have a good answer. Making the assumption is because that was when our ask, and our ask still is $32 billion for public transportation. But with the $15 billion that, as President-elect Biden calls it, this would be a down payment. We would look to continue activity after this for another tranche of transit money. So with the lesser amount, I think they were trying to get as many people as they can to 75%. There is provisions that if everybody got 75% and there was money left over, we'd get extra. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just not sure that everyone is going to get to 75%. Then how do they determine who does and who doesn't? And so more to come. And once that call happens on Monday, I'll send out an update email and any additional information that I'm aware of. And with that, I just wish everyone happy holidays, and we will see you all in 2021 and look forward to a much more promising year of transit issues. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, General Manager Pollack. Next up are the Board of Director reports, and so I would ask the members of the board to turn their attention to page 48 in the packet, and Director Nguyen, if you'd like to make your report.
Yes, and actually for the DEI committee, I would like to yield my time to my colleague, Director Inahos Presi, but I too as well want to wish everybody on staff and on the board a happy holiday season. That's all I have.
Thank you, Director Nguyen. Director Bush?
Oh, I thought that Director Inahos Presi was going to speak. No?
She will after you and Director Carney, if that's all right.
Oh, okay, that's good. So I will start with the Citizens Advisory Committee. Get my right piece of paper. The committee met on Tuesday, the 15th, held a virtual meeting with 3 members not in attendance. It was a good meeting, good discussion. Deputy General Manager Mr. Trimble presented an overview of all of the COVID-related activities, which included cleaning and sanitizing schedules of our vehicles and facilities, our service planning that our district has been doing, and communications with riders and employees. It's been a busy few months. And then we received a current ridership report that we heard tonight from Service Planning Manager Chris French, as well as some long and short-term planning for service changes. And he spoke about the Polk County Flex as well. Then they discussed at length the draft plan, which I do have, of work for the committee for the future. They had just gotten all together and was ready to get started when the pandemic shut everything down. But they're ready to go to work. They're ready. So they had some extra elements added to the plan, considering that we're part of the City of Salem's Climate Action Plan, and sustainability became part of that discussion as well. They also went through their reappointments of some members, and a motion was passed for some individuals to continue with the committee's work. They wanted to stay on, so they need to do their paperwork. And then they nominated and passed the motions for the committee chair, which we voted on tonight. That committee chair is Patrick Schwab, and the new vice chair is John Hamill. And then members gave kudos to each other. They praised the hard work of the Cherriots team during the pandemic, and also the work that previous chair Rick Hartwig and vice chair Roberto Cotto did, and they were recognized for their work over the past 2 years. I look forward to, again, working with the new work plan. The next meeting will be March 2021. But in the meantime, a subcommittee will be formed to work out, fine tune some of the plans so that they can get running again when it's time to start. So throughout the month, I attended various meetings again, worked with the different chambers that I attend, talking about transit, helping where I can help out. And then I had 2 coffee with Kathy's with Mayor Clark, one in November and one just last Saturday. And at both activities, we discussed what's going on in the Kaiser community. And I've always been invited to present our transit information. Other members of the committee are Kaiser Fire Board member Betty Hart, Kaiser Chamber member Jonathan Thompson, and Pastor Jose Dominguez from La Luz del Valle. We spoke about many things affecting our organizations. I talked about our ridership, health and safety commitments program in November, outreach, customer service, when we might get holiday service back or get to do holiday service. And I was able to distribute the pamphlets of doing business with Cherriots and talk about that. Talked about the Albany feasibility study and the future South Salem Transit Center. And I appreciate Patricia Feeney's development of talking points for me for these events. Another one, let's see, I watch the Marion County Commissioner meetings and try and keep up to date on all the COVID discussions and wildfire response and relief that is going on and how that might affect us as our transit district. I attend the Kaiser City Council. And then at one of the commission meetings, Judge Prowell and the county court system's impact from COVID was talked about. Lots of people had to pivot and change, and they have kept their court system open as much as possible, which is amazing. So, and then Commissioner Brentano's last time with Kaiser City Council was this past week at the breakfast, which we're not able to hold where we normally do it, but I did find out that his favorite donut is a Tiger Stripe donut. So he was able to have those. And we all said, thank you for all your work. It's been fantastic. He has positively impacted our state, not just Marion County, in many ways. I attended a couple of APTA webinars, one about how small transit districts survive the pandemic, and we are doing an excellent job compared to some others who have had struggled. So again, kudos to Cherriots. And then the last thing to talk about here was for the holiday season in Kaiser, we have the Kaiser Chamber Network of Women has a basket delivery of food and toys and clothing items to area families that are in need, and that was put all together by many, many volunteers. And the baskets were delivered on Saturday. My husband and I got to do one of those and just met the most fantastic family. So getting involved with our community is hugely beneficial. And I think that might be it. I'm looking forward to the work of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee to help us work on helping to keep our district and our committees representative of our community, because we serve a wide variety of people in our area, and we want as many voices at the table as possible to help us, with the surveys, with our special transportation fund, or our citizens advisor over budget, whatever that they can do to help us make a really world-class experience, top-notch transit agency. So, I forgot that Representative Post was at the Kaiser Government Affairs Committee and talking about forward into the next session. So we're still looking at seeing what's coming on around the corner. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bush. Director Carney?
She's always such a hard act to follow. Thank you, President Davidson. Director Bush, I just have such admiration for how much you are able to get out and about and accomplish in your reports every month. We are
Most of it is by Zoom.
We're still working at home with inadequate childcare, sheltering in place, more or less, here in this house. But I am happy to report to this committee and anyone else interested that we did get slots for both of our one-year-old twins to start daycare in January. And so maybe life starts to look a little bit more normal for us here. I am super pumped. I haven't really broken the news to them yet, but I'm sure they'll be just as excited as I am. So with that, I did unfortunately have to miss the SCATS meeting that took place earlier this week. I've started a new job working with the Department of Human Services, and with the legislative committee days that are taking place this week, we had urgent need to put together a presentation on some self-sufficiency programs, and it just got in the way of my attendance. But I'm hopeful that my very dedicated board member, Director Bush, and often Director Krebs are able to participate and perhaps can report on my behalf. But looking at the packet for that, they did discuss the FEMA wildfire response for Marion County, and they adopted their legislative policy for the coming legislative session, which starts, if I'm not mistaken, about January 19th. So the long session coming right up. Other than that, I just wanted to take a moment to comment on our new committee appointments and thank especially Kathy Lincoln for joining our budget committee for Subdistrict 3, which is the subdistrict I represent, along with Ashley Carson-Cottingham in Subdistrict 6 and Sharon Blasey in Subdistrict 7. We are so grateful and happy to have your service on this committee, and your service to the community is so welcome. So thank you very much. And that concludes my report. Looking forward to having very happy holidays and working hard alongside all of you through the next year when things have got to get easier, right? So thank you.
I share your hope, maybe not quite optimism. I'm not there yet. Director Hinojos Pressy.
Well, for the DEI committee, I'm, happy to report that we finalized our scope of work and our scoring criteria. So we'll be putting that out there relatively soon, hoping to get some great proposals and starting to move forward with this work. Thankfully, a little bit ahead of schedule than what we had initially planned. So very excited about that. Outside of that, I don't have too much more to report, but thank you, Director Bush, for your words of encouragement about the DEI committee. I too hope that this will give us a great path to have equal representation of our very diverse communities, both with our committees and also within Cherriots. And that's it.
Thank you, Director. I'll go ahead and provide my report now. So for the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, we met earlier this week. As I've mentioned in past meetings, they're actively recruiting for an executive director, and they hope to begin negotiations with their selected candidate here shortly. So hopefully at the next meeting or at the next, maybe in a couple meetings, I'll be able to report who that new executive director is. Also keep your eyes peeled for an upcoming COG Connections letter email. They'll likely announce their selection at that point through that. So in terms of the meeting, we were also briefed on the theme of wildfire recovery. We also began a discussion around a legislative agenda for the Council of Governments. I am recommending that we include specific language around public transit. Right now, there is language around transportation funding, though it is pretty heavily focused on highway funding. And given that the Council of Governments is a regional body that represents multiple diverse communities as well as diverse government organizations, I'm strongly advocating for the inclusion of public transit funding, both protecting the funds that we have received, but also looking towards further expansion of public transit. And so I hope to be able to report in our January meeting whether or not that was approved by the Council of Governments board as a whole. In terms of the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, we actually didn't have a meeting this month, but on a somewhat related note, the Oregon Transportation Commission did meet, and they did consider those different scenario plannings that we talked about briefly at the end of last meeting, where they're looking at for the next 4-year STIP, so their long-term funding plan. And after we submitted our letter, our letter in support of the non-highway funding option, they changed some of the buckets that they were using to make determinations. And they ultimately went with an option that awards only $255 million to what they classify as a non-highway option. And so while they have repeatedly hailed it as historic, and it certainly is, it is probably the largest amount of funding from the Oregon Transportation Commission directed towards non-highway funding. It is, in my estimation, inadequate to the needs. They're looking at $2 billion in funding, and so their allocation for this very broad umbrella term of non-highway is about 12%. So I think when there are future decision points with the Oregon Transportation Commission, I would like our board to maybe be a little more proactive, and I'll do my part to make sure that I don't bring you something last minute. And so I'm keeping my eye on those kind of things. So hopefully we, along with other interested parties, can maybe see that number grow and reflect more of what the need is. Because even under their most optimistic scenario, they were looking at taking 50 years to build out what even could be considered like a minimum standard of bike infrastructure. And another scenario that they were looking at said that it would take 150 years. And both of those options are wildly inadequate to the need that we as a state are facing, both for safe travel and also to address some more broader systemic issues that we as a state are facing. I will also report on the Climate Action Plan Task Force with the City of Salem. I sit on there, and we've undertaken a visioning process that just concluded. We did a 4-hour, or I guess it was a 3-hour workshop where all 40 members of the committee talked and did breakout groups over Zoom. And then there was a community input portion. And I made sure to advocate for strong action that reflects a livable Salem that takes into account a very multimodal approach, that not everyone either can or, quite frankly, should own a car, and we need to be able to provide the infrastructure to allow individuals to get where they want to go, however they want to get there. And I think I'm optimistic that the City of Salem and this task will ultimately adopt recommendations and take action that will allow us as an agency to really bloom into our role as a mobility integrator for the region. And with that will conclude my report for this month. Director Krebs.
Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish everybody a happy Christmas and New Year's and other holidays that take place in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a different Christmas for a lot of us this year. We're not having a big family gathering, trying to be healthy and safe, and so we might even have a Zoom family meeting. I'm the alternate, so I attended the SCATS meeting, and there was something discussed and approved for transit, and that was they passed 2 resolutions making tip amendments, and they included the purchase of 5 new fixed route buses and 10 new paratransit buses. So that was approved, and most of the other activities, the Unified Planning Work Program and Safe Routes to School updates were basically information items and asks for us to look at the program so that people would know what was going on and make any modifications to the plan. There were some minor tip modifications that were announced, and the next SCATS meeting is going to be January 26th, which is next month, so we won't have one this month. I also attended some intercity seminars or webinars, and I have to agree with Director Davidson. One of the problems we have with funding for a lot of the non-highway modes is that they don't put enough funding in the bucket to get anything substantial accomplished, and you have these long run-out programs that have a 50 to 100-year window, and we really need them now, and people don't realize is when you don't have the service there, nobody uses it. And if you had the service there, you would take some pressure off of the highway system, because if you've seen a picture of the number of people sitting in chairs if they were in cars on a road, and people sitting in chairs if they were on a bus on the road, it takes a lot less infrastructure to move people on transit than it does on private motor vehicles. I also attended the Morningside Neighborhood Association, and we have had 2 meetings in the last 2 months that brought up an issue of Reed Road. And at one time we had looked at running buses on Reed Road, but Reed Road is dangerous right now for buses. It's too narrow, and I'm not advocating that until it's repaired, but I was not the pusher, but I keep bringing forth that Reed Road needs to be improved so we can run buses on it, because there's huge developments taking place. There's going to be hundreds of people living along Reed Road, and it's even dangerous to drive your car there. But if we don't have buses running there, it's going to mean we're going to have a lot more cars and motor vehicles into the mix here in Salem. So we need to get a bus get the road improved so we can put a bus through there. And we'll also cut several miles off our Route 6 when that happens. But that's about all I have to report. And again, best wishes for the holidays, and see you all next year.
Thank you, Director Krebs. Director Richards?
Well, this month was the first month that I actually got into one of the citizen groups, and it was kind of strange because it was one of the groups in South Salem that I had worked with. We worked on the Costco situation out south, and it was a very good meeting, very interesting, and I got to hear the ins and outs of city government in Salem and why some things go and some things don't. But it was really an interesting thing. I'm on 5 other boards, by the way, and unfortunately they're not as directly connected to transportation issues as what you folks are worked with, and I hope to work with. But it was this month very good because part of what I worked with was the emergency section from the state that was getting stuff out to the fire people. And I'm also on the board of Northwest Seniors, and we worked to get food out there. And so I got to see firsthand how much was required and how many people really lost so much. And but the saddest thing was I got 8 calls, and they were all wanting to know when was the parade. They said, I explained to them that this was not going to be the year for such a thing, and they really were disappointed. And they say, please come back real soon because we really missed that as part of our holiday thing. And I want to tell you that the last year in my life has been rather strange, and I'm ready for this to get over so I can start doing some of the things I want. I am particularly interested in, I spent a lot of time at the Capitol, and this year, because the restrictions, I can't be there, and I'm guarantee you that when it opens up, I will be there because I think that we need to be really careful with a lot of the things that are coming out of this year. So I really hope every one of you has a wonderful holiday, because if you're here and you've done this much considering our situation, I think you've just done a marvelous job. And I hope to be happier next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Richards. So that concludes our Board of Director reports. I'd like to take the opportunity, though, to make a couple appointment changes. The first of which is to appoint Director Hinojos Pressy as our Citizen Advisory Committee representative. As you may all remember, prior to joining us on the board, she was actually a member of the Citizen Advisory Committee. And so I'm having her as our official designated liaison, I think is very appropriate. And Director Bush has agreed to serve as the alternate to the State Transportation Improvement Fund Advisory Committee and also the Special Transportation Fund Advisory Committees. And so with that, that will conclude the appointments that I had in mind. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up before we concluded was I would like to hear a report at a future meeting, perhaps as soon as January, of how the development of either finding a replacement for or doing an expansion of our operation facility is going. And so I'd love to hear a report from staff at a future meeting on that. And then unless there's any other comments from members of the board, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Okay, Director Krebs.
Just saying goodbye and Merry Christmas to everybody.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays, and please be safe, be well.
Thank
We're
you.
adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.